All right, all you devils, how's it going? Happy Friday. Here we are, the 26th of June. Of course, we'll look at Bitcoin today. I thought we'd start out here on a daily. So this is a daily to Bitstamp. We've looked at this a few times previously. You know, just taking the Elliott out of it. Well, of course, there's just a few obvious things we can see. So this 10K and change right at this golden zone has been very consistent resistance. And we've got our golden zone from the pivot up here. So all of this still very much in play. Now, just looking at it, you know, you can certainly, here, let me get that off. You can certainly make a case for how this feels just top heavy. You know, we've been sitting up here for quite some time. If we're going to come down and do something like that, you could certainly see that as a candidate here. If we're going to break some of the, well, here, this is the 50 from the other pull. So if we're going to break some of this, here, let me pull this off. If we're going to come down here, this, you know, again, no Elliott, just looking for structure. Where's the next algo participation? We've got this little cluster here prior. It was prior support. So if we're going to come back down here and test that, you can certainly see how that would make sense. Wouldn't necessarily invalidate the bull count. We certainly have this trend line that has been, I mean, that is the 3 times we've tagged that trend line. And what's interesting about it is that this was golden zone and this was golden zone. So we've got back-to-back golden zone tags coming off of that trend line. So we got to respect the resistance up here. It's certainly significant. But if we're going to come down 72-ish, you know, that would just be 50% swing low, swing high. Now, as I still have the same count. So if we come over here and look at this, if this count is going to stay valid, let's see, that's the 8-hour. Let's go 3-hour here. I do still maintain this count as my primary. Let's get this down here. So I'm pulling not from the absolute low as I was. So over here, I'm pulling from the absolute low. So you'd get a 50% swing low, swing high. Call it 72 and change. Over here, because I still think this is a 2, I'm pulling from the 2. A lot of Elliotticians disagree with me there, and I can certainly respect that. What I do prefer, though, you know, if it's a YouTube sub or, of course, a member, if you disagree with it, fine, right? I'm never here to tell you that my count is the right count, but don't just shit on it and say, well, yeah, there is a bull count, but that's not it. You got a different idea. Go ahead and let's see it. I'm always open to input. I've been through the S&P count with my senseis multiple times. We don't necessarily agree on it, so I'm always interested in that kind of back and forth rather than just, oh, that counts shit. All right. Okay. All right. I mean, what's the point of that comment? I never understand those. Anyway, I digress. So as I sit here, let's see if I can get this hot. I still think we've got a contender here to have gone 1, 2. Now the 3 is complete up here. We're seeking the 4, looking for the 5. Now, of course, I can see the length of time of this 2 relative to this 4 is, well, we're pushing the boundaries here of what would be acceptable, i.e. in terms of the right look, the right time relationships. We are definitely pushing it. I can't get a count here that, barring I mean, there's absolutely no way to get a 5 into this first push. So you would have to just say, well, you can't dig it out, so let's just call it a 1, 2. All right, so maybe you could get an Elliott shuffle to go into a diagonal here, so you'd have a 5, 3, 5, 3, 5 diagonal, putting this as the 2. It really doesn't look much better because you'd have the very shallow 2 here. All of this, there is no clean count where it's like, yeah, perfect, looks just right, the fib swings are right. It's not quite there. So until this is invalidated, and we got a long way to go because the wave 1 is down here at 5,500. So coming from this swing, this pivot here, the proposed wave 2, there's plenty of cushion here for this to come down if this count holds here, and we're coming down here. So my first anticipation is that if we are going to get soft here and come down, that the first place we'd look for support, and we can just see how the channel would support that, is right here in this oh, let's call it 8 to 8,100 potentially. Now, going much deeper than that, then we really do stretch too far. I think I will have to revisit this with a different count. If we're going below this 38, simply the depth of retracement, the length of time, the swing size of the 4 relative to the 2. I mean, is it still possible? Yeah, still possible, but that's going to really be pushing it in terms of how much you could. Well, let's put it this way. If it's coming lower here, I would have much less confidence in this count, given, here we can just look at it like this is often a good way to do it. So just taking this 2 compared to this 4, right? What is it, 4, 5 times as big? Right? So you get my point. It just doesn't have the right look here in terms of that relationship, but the actual swing structure, I am hang on to this count as long as we hold this. Well, I've just kind of wicked off this structure here. So let's call it, 8 and change if we're going to come down here. Now, one of the things that's interesting here, and part of the reason I think that we're soft here, in addition to there's a lot of options that are expiring here, so the derivatives market likely creating some of this volatility, but it's the, let's come over here, the correlation with the S&P is like 90%, and it's very consistently up here. So this is just the correlation coefficient. Well, here, I'll show you. So this is the correlation coefficient with the S&P, with S&P 500. So we've been holding up here at, high 80s. It'll get into the 90s. So we're just tracking with the S&P remarkably closely, and you can see now we get. We move out of that correlation, but right now we're at very high correlation. So if we're going to come down, because the S&P is going to come down, which looking at it, well, there's a golden zone that's been tested a couple of times here. Looks like they're going to test it again. If we're going to come down here, and again, we're going to use swing low to swing high, then we'd be looking again here in the 72. So there's about $1,000 range here. Well, here, maybe this will make it easier. Let's put the measured move. So here's the 78-ish. Again, I'm swing low. You can kind of see it, right? How it could come down here and test this 50. So again, if the S&P is going to break the current low, which is a golden zone from its last pivot swing, I'm sure members have already done that. This wouldn't be surprising. So then I think we'd be back here revisiting this, looking to try and complete something up here, and thinking 1, 2. There would be your 3, 4. Now we're off to go challenge those highs, but we're not there yet. So let's come over here. Now let me go down, let's go to a 30-minute because I needed to get that tight and granular here to try and get a count. So per the count that I maintain as a primary, we're finishing the wave 3 here. And now we've gone into an ABC into a W, ABC into an X. It's not quite a 618, it's close. So from our pivot here, we're just a little shy of the 618. I see, again, not being a purist, I'd allow that for the X. So coming down, there is a 5 coming down here. So it looks like we've got A. Now it'll be interesting to see if this swing low here breaks. So I've got a candidate here. I can complete an impulse down for the A. So it looks like I've got A, and perhaps this is the 3 of the B going in here if we're going to get a little push up again, depending on how the S&P is going to respond here. I'm just leaning over my shoulders. It's back challenging that golden zone again, but if that breaks, we're going lower. So that would put us, well, just using the algo target here, we're going to come up here and challenge this range here, point of control, to come down here. Well, now the algo, well, let's just draw it up. So here, let me zoom in here a little bit more so we can see this, because this is a little tricky in here, but you can get the count to complete. So I've got it as 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I complete the internal impulse of the 3. I get a little ABC into the 4. This has been very pervasive lately, both in the S&P and Bitcoin, where you just have a shitty 5th, right? It's just funk in the 5th. It just will not give you a clean 5 to get down there. I'm on a 30-minute now. Oh shit! I suppose you can go down to a 1, 2 minute and maybe dig something out here. But right now, until it changes, so much so that I'm forced to change it, I do think we've got a completed A wave going in. So on the assumption that I've got this correctly identified here as an X, it looks like A is in, the A of the B is in. So we'd be anticipating, well, so if we're going to just take the swing low to swing high from our pivot here, again, we don't know that this is going to hold. But if it is, and we've got a little support zone down here, we're going to come up towards that B. Well, here would be the 1618. So if we try and put all that together, we know Bitcoin loves loves the golden zone. Well, this would put us up towards the 786. We'd have 127, 1382 for a B. If it's not going to be the 100, right? It certainly could be the 100. Come here. We could have the 100 right at the 50. And it looks to me like you'd likely have some median lines here. I've got go to original. So that looks like a real contender here. So we'd have 100% the length of the proposed A from this pivot. And now again, always the emphasis here. If this pivot, as long as this pivot holds, we've got 80% probability of getting to the median line, right? Which would put us at the 100, at the 50. We've got a high volume node here, which would set that up rather nicely. And then you'd be anticipating the move down here. Algo target one contender, right? Doesn't necessarily need to be the first target. Could easily go to second target, where we'd be hitting the channel support. And then if let's turn this around, assuming, right? I'm just trying to put together a roadmap here. We'd be looking, let's bring this down just a hair. So we'd be looking for swing, if this is the A, assuming, right? Again, I don't have this. If that were the B, well, here's the 100, here's the 1272. Yeah, I might also look for a 618 going the other direction. So let's go back to this direction. Well, here would be the 1618 of the inverse here. So I'm looking for confluence. Second target here, here's 200%, 2618. So there's definitely room for this to go down here. Of course, you'd have the exact same thing coming the other direction, right? We'd be looking for our median lines. Come back here to original. So something like that. So of course we'd have competing sets of median lines. So if we tag the median line here of this swing here, I know it's getting hard to see. I get you here. I'll clean it up in a second. But if that becomes our B and we're coming down for the C of the of the Z. So we're now are we? No, this would be the Y. So if this is A, I thought we had W, X, Y, X, Z. Pardon me, we don't. So we have A, B, C into the W, X. Now we're looking A is in on the assumption that A is in. We're seeking the B, right? That it's not done yet. We're coming down for the C of the 4, of the Y of the 4 would put us right down here. All right, and where are we? Right at 80, they call it 8,500. So now you come back over here and you go, okay, 8,500. Where is that? Well, that's way up here. So something has to give here, because out on the daily, even if I use the secondary pivot, so here's 8,200. Something's going to give, right? So either we're going to have a more shallow, well, let me rephrase that. Either we're going to have a deeper C, and we're going down. Well, here's the 38 down here at let's call it 8,100. So we'd be having this would be one quite a big sell-off here in the C if that's going to be realized. Now, I know this is getting incredibly difficult to read, so let me just clear all this up. I think this is a reasonable way to look at it. It's just use the geometry here to guide us. So first thing is, well, do we have a pivot here? Do we have a pivot that's going to hold? And if we're going to rally, what can we anticipate? Well, we can certainly know to look for the golden zone. So let's get that in here. Let's just go golden. Okay, so that again, so as we talked about, this will be coming back to the 50. It's hard to forecast like this until you get some sense of, okay, well, first, how high are we going here? Sure, it could hit the median line, but it could, we go up to the channel and hit the upper edge of the upper parallel here, and then come down. So it's always just could be here, could be here. We're just looking for potential locations where we might anticipate that we get a reaction based on the geometry the market gives us. So again, I'm just proposing here's a potential pivot. If that were the case, that would imply that we're not going as far down. If we go higher, let's see if I can do this. If we're going higher up to the 618, we're going to pull it from here. So maybe we get the internal. Let's look here. I know it's hard to see. It's easier when it's here. So that would be the 1272 right at the golden zone here, then coming down. Now if we're going down here, gets first or second target, or perhaps this set of median lines, then we could be pushing. We could be down here, getting the lower parallel on this side. And then the whole thing is down. We're still getting the 4 down here. We'd have a monster C last time here, and then I'll clear this up. So let's see what that would look like. So if we go from this pivot, and we're going to go all the way to golden zone, We certainly know Bitcoin loves the golden zone. So if we're going to come down here to this pivot here where we have the 1618, perhaps we're tagging the 1618, 175 window, so we'd get the C of the Y of the 4 before heading back up. Now let's try 2 hour. See how that all looks. All right, are we getting too far off? So this would be the range. So if I clean all this up, let's just get all this off here, all of this. Okay, so we're in the process of WXY. So now we come and try to put that all together, looking for the 38. We've got a little bit of structure here. We've got a little low volume nugget down here. We've got this little wick here because we've not had, so you can see it, right? There has been no market acceptance here. So we get this low volume here. So then I would say, all right, if that's the W and that's the X, 1618, 127382, here's the 100. Right, could be anywhere in this range here where we'd be looking for this to stay. And again, I'm just kind of guessing on the timeline here. So this is a little bit of a negative because, again, as I was just saying, we're stretching the length of time of the 4 relative to the 2. It just makes you uncomfortable with it, right? It doesn't look right. But I'll be damned if I can get a count here that is clean. And it just continues to come back to the first 1, 2, right? That's consistently the problem, the 1, 2. Well, even looking here all along the way, right? Every retracement has been so shallow, with the exception of this one, which was essentially just a free fall, panic sell. And we've had a couple of these, right? Bitcoin's prone to these. You get the spikes up, spikes down. It's a challenging count, right? It's very unclear how we get out of this. What is clear is that we've built quite a little base up here, right? So we're just looking at the volume profile. We can see all of this as we just have gone sideways here, and we're just stuck between 9 and 10,000. We've been there. What was this low here? 8. Well, really, you could say 8 and 10. Let's do it that way. We'll go between 8 and 10. We've just been stuck, right, with no sense of direction. So I think to a large extent that this correlation that we're seeing, as if we're going to stay so tightly connected to the S&P, did we break that low? Nope, we haven't broken it yet. So it looks like if more weakness is coming, this is the area that I'd be looking for, maybe put a toe in the water here. Now, again, that doesn't mean sit down here with your catcher's mitt in a limit order. That means let it come down here, look for a pivot. Do we get a pivot? Okay, if I get a little reaction, then I want to come back. I want the retrace. Remember, right? We're always looking for the internal. We say, okay, well, hey, you got that's internal there. Yeah, sure it is. But in terms of the entry, I want to get my pivot established. I want to think, okay, I've got something technical here. Okay, is it, rather than just buy it because the market's been coming straight down, can I get a little pivot and get a little reaction off of it? Now, you'd be down here, I'm on a 2 hour, you go down to the 15-minute. First little pullback, because then the risk reward is so good. Right? That's what we're trying to do. Rather than sit down here and say, I'll just take the limit order because we don't know where that's going to stop. If I get something technical here and it makes sense per the count, the structure, the geometry, okay, good. Okay, let it pivot. If it pivots, now go down to a smaller time frame. Maybe you're down to a 30-minute. Look for again, use the market. Look at this big high volume node here. We come back here, center line of the channel. Okay, I've got a little bit of confluence here. I've got a big high volume node. I've got some geometry working for me. I've got a potential pivot here, nothing more. Retrace. Okay, now the distance to my stop is so much smaller than if I'm just buying here and I'm like, oh, well, all right, well, where am I going to put my stop? Under the 50? Am I just going to use a random risk control? Or I'm on 2% of my account. Okay, well, how much are you buying? Again, do you want to give it this much room? Do you want to give it that much room? 80, and that's approximately $1,900 of risk. I wouldn't with leverage. Right? I want the little one. If I get the pivot, I want that one. Right now, I still have, in terms of percentage return, still looks very attractive. If the count is right and it's 1, 2 at this degree, 3, 4, 5. Well, that's at that degree, that's not likely to be the 5th. I mean, shit. All right, could be. But what's more probable is that this would be 1, 2, 3. Now we're going up to the 5. again, it continues to be problematic as relates to the length of time of this 4, if indeed we're coming down to this kind of level relative to the length of time of the 2. It's just an ongoing problem. And there's not an easy solution here. Well, I suppose one solution is go, well, the Elliott's not making sense. It's not particularly helpful to me, so I'm just going to come over here and stay out on the larger time frame and keep a macro perspective. And if we're coming down to some of this support, well, here, look, we've got a high volume node right here at the golden zone. If we're going to come down, because we know Bitcoin loves the golden zone, it's just all algo driven, right? So that's what you're looking for. So the question is, where are you looking for entry? Well, if you want to be ultra conservative, I'd wait for something like this. If you're a little more aggressive, right, and you want to trade it, well, maybe I put it this way. In terms of your longer term bags and where you're looking for strong entry locations for Bitcoin, anything here between what do we got down here? I'll call it 7,200 and what's our 65 here? 72 and 62, that's pretty ripe for entry. Now, if you want to be a little more aggressive, right, which is how I'm going to trade it, here, I like this. If I can get in here with this 8,200 on the idea that we're not done yet because of the problems at that fret, and we've been over it enough times here. If I can get it here, now, again, I'm not going to, that's not kids' tuition money, but I'm certainly comfortable taking a trade here because the risk is so small, right, in terms of that pivot. If that's violated, well, then this blows up, and we're heading lower. Okay, well, now I've got to revisit the whole count. Right, something's not right. So you got to go back. You just literally, if that's the case, if we break lower than this, then what I'll do, and I'll probably doing it next Friday. If we break this, I just strip it bare and just start from scratch. Okay, what do we know now for sure, right? If we can eliminate some possibilities, that's always an advantage, and that's one of the advantages of Elliott Wave is that while right now it's a little, it's cloudy. You can't see it clearly. You're just unsure. As we start to, if again, heavy emphasis on if we're breaking lower, then we're eliminating some possibilities. And that's what a huge advantage of Elliott Wave, right? Because you get, well, if it can't be this, then more probable it's that. Here, we're kind of in the educated guessing range, right? So long term, certainly plenty of bullish fundamentals. Long term, right? Talking 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? So we're probably anyone watching this video, well, maybe not anyone. Long term, I think we can agree there's potential for Bitcoin to at least go up and be challenging the old highs up at 20K. Long term. Now, are we getting there? Do we have to go down and visit the 3,700 lows before we get there? Well, certainly no shortage of bears that think that's the case. I'm not one of them, obviously, right? It's been pretty well established. So if we have to do it this way, I will have taken a stop here. I'll be revisiting as we come down here. I'd be very comfortable buying down here between the 50 and the 618, anywhere in that range. Just now the whole thing, you're going to need to simplify until we get more clarity. Okay, I got to swing. I got to retrace to a 50. Right? When in doubt, you can always just simplify it that way. What the algos do last? Where are the dominant algos going to be? Right here out on the 2 hour. Right, again, so that if you're going to put your stop down here, that's going to affect the size. But this might be the kind of thing that you would ladder in. So you might start here, add a little bit, right? Stops right here. So the amount of size as you ladder in, as it comes down, you got to be very, very disciplined about not getting over leveraged or over margined here. So if you take that hit, you have to be able to take that hit and not blow up your account. So I'm going to use something I heard from another educator the other day, which I thought was very well said and very thoughtful. He was making the analogy between finite and infinite games, right? So something like a game of chess. Game of chess, we start the game, there's winners and there's a loser, right? There's a winner and a loser, right? Somebody gets checkmate. Eventually, there's a winner and a loser. Well, trading is an infinite game. It never ends. So the goal of trading is not to be the winner, because there is no winner. We only have traders, and we have those who can no longer trade for the most likely reason is because they blow up their account, or they hit their maximum drawdown, and maybe they got to circle back around, refund their account, and start over. But it's not about being a winner. Like I was right on that trade, so I'm the winner. Nope, it's a never-ending game. Right? The goal of the game is not to get blown out. So again, as we've talked about so many times here, money management almost always as a matter of fact, we just did our surveys here, and we're for members here, I just to update you here, we're likely to do the drawing early of next week because we still have a few that are asking for more time. They want to finish it over the weekend. Understand that people are busy. So that drawing for what we talked about, the 0.05 of a Bitcoin, an educational and a social membership, those will happen later, probably middle of next week. We can give everybody a chance to participate. But as we are seeing in terms of what's coming in through the survey results, almost all of it is where the biggest problem is in money management. And the other thing here, just to give you a little update here on the fly as I digress, was it does look like option trading will be the next area we'll really focus on here based on the number of requests to get into that content, and that suits me just fine. As many of you know, I was an option broker for 10 years, so it's content I'm comfortable with. It's going to take a little time, right? Because we're starting with people that are unclear on who've never traded options before. So it's for me to propose an option trade when someone's not quite sure what the difference between a put and a call is. Can't quite go there yet. So there will be some content for members as we take you through just the fundamentals of option trading. But over here, we'll be proposing trades, and you'll see things. And if you're interested and like the way that we teach or I teach, then that will be perhaps another area or another reason to perhaps join us for some educational content. Okay, all of that said, kind of a weird spot for a little promo. I think it's kind of a hurry up and wait here. I do not think we're at a point where there's a new trade here. So I'm going to go back to that 30-minute. I don't think we have a new trade here. I wouldn't be, let's say it this way, I wouldn't be buying this looking for that B, right? Let the B happen. Now, as I've said many times, I rarely will short Bitcoin. So if that B happens, I'm not looking to sell into the C. I'm going to wait until I come down here. I'm looking to be a buyer. I always want to be a buyer of Bitcoin. That's just me, right? I'm not saying don't sell it. Shit, my senseis will sell the shit out of it. I just prefer not to. But partly, a lot of reasons, right? I don't have the time that I used to have to manage my trades, throughout the course of the day. Partly dealing with members, teaching, middle of the day doing videos like this. So I just look for where out on these larger degrees can I find an opportunity to add to bags, right? To add to my long-term holding rather than short-term swing trading, right? Again, but we've no shortage of both members and senseis that are very active in short-term trading. So if you're interested in that, it's not like we can't accommodate you. It's just not what I do. All right, so there you go. One AB looking for the B here to come up and finish. We're trying to complete this WXY. We'll see if it's going to hold as a candidate for the 4. It's on the edge, right, of being blown out, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of Ellioticians who will disagree with this count. It's been a very unpopular count, interestingly. And I understand why, right? Because it's a very unusual start down here. The start of it is what's problematic. All right, so we will see as it's revealed. That's all I got for today. Oh shit, no, I think I do. I'm going to do an S&P update, right? Because it's kind of interesting. Okay, guys, there you go. Be back to you shortly. S&P on the